Welcome to the CFS Recovery Podcast, your companion on the journey to healing and thriving. Join our incredible team of coaches who have all been where you are now. In each episode, we'll share insights, tips, and real-life stories to inspire, support, and guide you. You'll hear stories from those who have made remarkable progress, reminding you that recovery is possible and you are not alone. Let this podcast be your pocket guide, your source of hope, and your reminder that thriving health is just around the corner. Stay with us, take a deep breath, and let's walk this path to recovery one step at a time.
How's it going, guys? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. We also have Coach Junior, Coach Ariel, Coach Adrian, Coach Krista. This is pretty epic. We're all here in person, actually meeting each other for the first time, and we're at this team retreat. So we're just going to dive into a conversation here, share some stories. Hopefully this inspires you guys, but this is probably the first time you're seeing us come together in person. You've seen us on Facebook Q&A, coaching calls within the program, outside the program. So we're going to jump right into it. Junior, want to quickly introduce yourself if anybody doesn't know you, kind of where you're from, a little bit of your background?
Yeah, sure. So, hey guys, my name is Junior. I am 31 years old. I am from Orlando, Florida. A little fun fact about me, I was the first coach to actually come on board right after Miguel started here. A little bit about my background. So I got sick back in 2019. My main symptom was fatigue. The onset was pretty quick. It was about a month in where I was living a regular life, all of a sudden transitioning, going into being in a bedbound state. I tried everything under the sun, as these guys know, from celery juice to herbs, multiple changes in my diet, been to the ER probably more times than I can count. I think I'm still getting hospital bills to this very day. It's called how many times I've been to the emergency room. But good part is, fast forward a few years later, ever since meeting Miguel and joining this program and learning about brain training and the nervous system and its relationship with the actual brain and how we can interface that and really get ourselves well, and going from that bedbound state, debilitating symptoms, like I said, that fatigue, the dizziness, the nausea, the IBS, everything like that. I'm living proof, and so are all of these guys and girls here, that you can fully recover and 100% get your life back. But what do you think, Miguel? Who should we pass it on to next?
Ariel. Pass it on to Ariel. But also, think about it. Just, a handful of years ago, we were all bedridden or housebound or sick. We were basically write-offs from the medical system. So the fact that we're all sitting here today, healthy, thriving, is pretty wild. These are full recovery cases. I mean, I was completely bedridden, hospitalized. You were bedridden at one. You've been to the hospital many times. You've been to lots of clinics, Krista. You were bedridden in a dark room. Adrian, you were hospitalized as well. So it's crazy. The fact that we're sitting here, it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like a little miracle. But Ariel, want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Ariel. I'm from Michigan in the United States. I came to CFS Recovery in 2022. Previous to that, I was ill for a really long time, since I was about 7. The face of the illness for me changed quite a bit, but overall I had a lot of pain, fatigue, brain fog. I really had a lot of symptoms over time. At one point, I was bedridden. I've been housebound, tried a lot of different types of treatments, and I would get to the point where I would get some relief, but then things would eventually, my baseline would lower and things would get worse, and I was starting to really lose hope. And by the time I found Miguel, I was really kind of at my wit's end. So when I found CFS Recovery in 2022, it completely changed my life. I have a life today that I didn't know was possible. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I'll go ahead and pass it to Adrian.
Amazing, Ariel. I just can't believe we're all here, you guys. This is awesome. I'm Coach Adrian. I am 34 years old, and I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. My world turned upside down overnight. It felt like in January of 2021. Leading up into that point, I was working full-time in property management office. I was working out full-time, and that looked like, 5 to 6 days a week, 2-hour workouts, hiking with my husband, going on vacations. And I woke up, you guys, and I had awful POTS symptoms, insomnia, awful fatigue, and like 25 plus symptoms. So I was on about an 8-month journey. I probably saw the top doctors on the East Coast in South Carolina, and nobody could help me. And I saw, the physical doctors, the specialists, I had the tilt table test. I saw the psychiatrists and nobody could help me. So I looked at a YouTube video online and it was about POTS, and I found Miguel. And when he started talking on this YouTube video about POTS and insomnia, I'm like, I have never heard anybody talk about this. And not just that, this guy's running on the beach. Like, he had a video of him running on the beach. He's recovered. Like, this is who I need to talk to, because I was in all of these support groups online and it was very, very, very not a good environment. They really scared me because I thought I had to manage this or live with this forever. And that's what the doctors told me as well. So that was the first time I really felt hope. And I reached out to Miguel. And actually, he was launching the first platinum program, like, ever. And he said, like, it was going to be launched in 2 weeks. And it was on my birthday. And it was going to be a birthday present from my husband, because my husband was my support system. And he was having a hard time watching me not get help. So he gifted me the program. And about 4 months into the program, I was back to work because I had to quit my job. Back to work. I was working out again. I was getting back into exercise. And you guys, it's been about, 3 years now. And I'm a coach here. Obviously, I'm no longer in property management. And I'm just so grateful that this is real. This is real. And I never thought I'd get my life back. And here I am with these amazing people here. And I get emotional because I was told we couldn't do this, right? So it's awesome. Thank you.
Very powerful. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Adrian. You set the tone for me.
Yeah, now let's back to yours, tone. All right, Krista, hold it together. Let's see.
Yeah, no, I mean, but this is so real, this real hope. And just to be here with you guys in this room, it's beyond a miracle, right? The statistics out there for all of us, what do they say? Less than 5% of people recover from this. So to have this many people in one room together, recovered, living life, thriving, and getting to, like, spread this out there to other people, it's pretty special, to say the least. So thank you, Adrian, for that, like, authentic, just sharing your story like that. Let's see what I can do with this. So hello, everyone. I'm Krista. I'm also a coach in the program. My understanding has just transformed as I've gone through the journey. Where I started when I came into the program myself as a thriver, I understood it as COVID was the triggered long COVID for me. I was a physical therapist before. I was very active. I was living life, just going on with all these things. I got COVID in July of 2020, and it just, like, careened me off a cliff. Like, my whole world, like what Adrian was saying, it felt like everything just flipped upside down. It felt like I was just, like, kidnapped from my life overnight. I understand things differently now that I've gone through the journey, and I've learned so much in the program about the nervous system and my stress threshold, but it was just so abrupt as you're going through it and you don't understand what's happening. So I started having all of these very intense, debilitating symptoms, a lot of neurocognitive stuff that I came to call brain fog. I had POTS, dysautonomia, MCAS, IBS, digestive issues. I mean, I was just getting, like, this whole alphabet, like this laundry list, like pages of diagnosis. And nobody knew what was going on. I was seen at 2 different long COVID clinics with multiple specialists at each one. It's both Cedars-Sinai and UCLA in Southern California, where I'm from. And nobody there had any answers. And if anything, it was just digging me deeper and deeper into the condition. And I found Miguel in August of 2022. Started watching his YouTube. And, at that point, I was on 20 different medications, and we were still trying other ones for pain, for migraines, for just every kind of thing, mitochondria support, all of these things. I'd gone down so many rabbit holes, and then I was on 20 different additional supplements and trying, like, all these herbal remedies and anything that I could find. And just, it wasn't until I found CFS Recovery that things started to shift for me. And so, finding that content and going through the program, getting this understanding of what's going on with our nervous system, looking at my life differently and understanding what we call the stress threshold, I just started to see things so differently. And with the help of the program and this amazing team of people, I've got my life back and then some. And that was such a hard thing for me to understand when I was in the trenches. But coming through it, like, getting my life and my health back, but then even more than that, and understanding how to approach my life in a much more balanced way and have this, like, this center of calm that I never experienced in my life before until I got to be a part of this program. And so now, the exciting, fun stuff that's easy to understand and see is I'm able to go hiking. I just did a 14.5 mile, so 23-kilometer hike in the Santa Monica Mountains, and no symptoms. I was a little tired, like a normal person tired, but able to do that, work full work weeks, read whatever I want to read. I can just binge read books, kayaking, ocean kayaking, and just, getting in sea caves. It just, life has just opened up in really, really amazing ways. So grateful for this team and for this program and to be part of this with you guys. It's amazing. So thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. So basically we've been hanging out for not even 24 hours yet, but we're going to do a whole bunch of other fun stuff. But we've had a lot of deep talks. We talked about a lot of recovery stuff. What was it like before? All the doctors we saw. There's just so many crossovers with our stories, but here we are today. I want to ask you guys, do you ever think about potentially falling back into CFS? And we get asked this all the time. A lot of people, we get asked this all the time of, do you guys ever worry about falling back into the illness or getting CFS again? And I mean, between us right here, we're probably having, well over 100 calls a month with people, 150 calls with people with CFS or long COVID or fibromyalgia, like diagnosed cases. And also that's another thing I want to bring up really quickly. These are diagnosed cases. It wasn't like, oh, we think we got CFS. No, like on paper, you guys actually got diagnosed with this kind of stuff, right? So the fact that we're sitting here recovered with all these stats flying around on the internet, less than 5%, we just defy the odds. But do you guys ever worry about falling back into the illness if you are pushing too hard? Because I push myself very hard. In fact, yesterday, I pushed myself very hard. When we got to this house, I had a migraine. And I was like, uh-oh, but then I was fine after. But what do you guys think about that? You guys have fears around it? Yeah, maybe you, because you actually push yourself very hard physically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, that's taken a while to kind of come off. That fear was there for a little while, but that's something that going through this program gifted me. And I know this is a bold thing to say, but for me going through this program, and I see this for our thrivers too, it's relapse insurance, because you understand exactly why you got into this condition. You understand what's going on, like Junior mentioned, with the brain and the nervous system. So you have this in-depth understanding, and you're not recovering by luck or chance. Like, you're knowing the actionable steps that you're taking and why those are working. So you're step by step on your way out of this. It's not like you just happened upon it. So, in the event that anything ever did come up and things came up again, I would know exactly what was going on. So it takes out the fear, and I know exactly what to do to course correct and get back on track. So I think that has shifted everything for me. It's taken out that element of fear, and just the knowledge has made all the difference.
Relapse insurance. I like that. That's how I think about it too. I was thinking about if ever I fell deep into the trenches, I know exactly what to do. So it takes the teeth out of the monster.
And I think the thing is, man, you see it on Facebook all the time. Because, I mean, let's be real. We actually do see stuff on Facebook where people get sick, they get well, and then they do get sick again, right? But most of the time when I talk to folks like that, the thing is, they don't fully understand the concept of mind-body, because when you kind of break that down, what it really translates to is the nervous system and brain relationship. But with mind-body, most of the people that we talk to that say, I got sick, got better, and then got sick again, when I ask them, you got better in what way? And their answer is usually, I was able to bike again, I was able to hike again, to walk, to exercise. Their answer, if you notice, is like super physical. Yeah. Right? And then I ask them, your mind, man, like, how are you responding to stress compared to before? What's your mindset? Your perspective on stress compared to before. Oh, well, didn't really work on that. It was just more of the physical that got better. But like Krista said, it's about fully really understanding what's going on. You work on the body and the mind, those two in that duality right there. That's what makes you never get sick again. And I think we all have experience with this too, because we both work on mind, body. It's not a coincidence. Like, none of us have relapsed from this, right? It's the whole picture right there.
And based on what we do on a weekly basis, we should be relapsing. The amount of stress we're dealing with, like,
what I do this morning too. You guys, we're in Arizona, and my husband and I ran 3 miles this morning. We're in the heat, right? And that fear is gone. I just wanted to add too, it's the awareness as well, and also my change in perspective, because I didn't know what my body was doing, right? I thought my body was out to get me. I thought that I was ill and that it was attacking me, right? And I had to fix this. And now that I'm on the same page as my body is now my friend and it's now my enemy. So even if I did get an uptick of symptoms, I wouldn't even define that as a relapse or, of course, not going backwards. It's just messages. It's my best friend. It's my nervous system just trying to speak to me. So my whole perception wouldn't even come, it's not even going to come from a fearful place. It's going to come from a place of gratitude. That changes the game. And that is what's going to make the symptoms go away, where they're not going to perpetuate, right? But the more that I see my nervous system as my friend, I don't fear it. Who do you mean, do you fear your friend? And that's completely changed, because before I knew any of this information that I learned from Miguel in this program, it was coming from a place of fear, and you fear your enemy, right? It felt like a predator, and it's not anymore. So what's to fear? Yeah.
If someone makes tons of progress and you ask them, how did you make progress? How did you get better? And if they could answer it and give you a solid answer, and they know exactly how, then if ever they slid back or had a flare up, they know exactly what to do. The only reason someone would relapse really bad was if they just overdid it, ignored all the signals, and they didn't really know how to recover in the first place. Because technically, if you're looking from the outside, I recovered 3 times almost, because I was completely bedridden for a couple of weeks, and then I went back to work full time. Then I got sick again, couldn't work for 6 months. Then I went back to work, and then I repeated that cycle. So did I really recover, or did I just stumble my way into higher capacity of activities? I was feeling symptoms all the time. Ariel, I want to ask you, because you had CFS for a long time, right? How many years did you have it for? It's hard to know exactly when, but
I saw the flashbacks and I'm still,
Like, oh God. Yeah. Well, I guess that would be about 24 years, because I was 7 years old, and I was actually, I can relate to what you're talking about, Miguel. I stumbled my way into higher capacity quite a few times.
Yeah.
And I was under the impression that I had recovered. I would find some personal development, some lifestyle modification, something that would be very extreme that would shock my system into changing. And then I would inevitably end up lowering my baseline and dropping and getting more, maybe even different symptoms. So I had the same experience. But yeah, I was sick for a long time, and I believed I was recovered quite a few times. And it's just different this time. Those times I was relying on changing symptoms, and this time I've addressed the problem. And I think that if I couldn't see myself fearing going back again, because I feel so connected to the solution, I've changed my life in ways that I don't want to change back, it's not going to change back. Whereas before, the lifestyle that I had was supporting illness. And today I try to have a lifestyle that supports wellness. So I just don't see that happening, but I don't really live in fear from that.
Because for someone to have this at 7 and then go through most of your life dealing with this, that's almost like your identity. So it's crazy how you pretty much like switched your paths. You almost switch your identity, because I mean, that's who you were, someone with CFS, right? So does that ever creep back in of like, oh, I'm dealing with this health thing, or now it's because you learned how to solve it and get to the root cause? Is that the difference now?
Yeah, I think the difference is that I've dealt with the root cause, and I have an identity today. I didn't have one before. It was illness. And getting better with CFS recovery and having a solution has allowed me to learn who I am and actually develop a sense of self. So there's not this part of me that's trying to figure out who I am in regard to this illness, because it used to run my life. I mean, people would ask me how I was doing, and my whole life it was according to how I was feeling symptom-wise. And today it's just not like that. So the things in my life aren't reflecting back illness anymore.
I see. That's wild. I can't even imagine having it for that long, like living life within limits, being limited like that for so long. But yeah, any topics you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, well, something.
Yeah, all right.
You met yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like we never even had to break the ice.
Yeah.
Because we see each other all the time behind a screen. So I almost felt like I see you guys almost every weekend, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And the thing is, when I was looking at you guys, because there was a moment where I was just staring at you guys.
You were just sitting there, you were tripping out.
I was sitting over here.
Yeah, I remember.
And I was like, no, there's no way these people were sick at one point. Like, it's just, there's no way. And the other week, you were in Europe.
Yeah.
Meeting a whole bunch of thrivers in the program.
Yep.
If they never told you, would you have believed that they were sick at one point?
No, definitely not. Because they were laughing, smiling. I remember it was in Munich. We were all sitting in the grass. There were about 15 of us, and we were just telling stories, cracking jokes, and it was nice talking about just life. Because a lot of these calls, Q&A calls, it's all about how do I deal with symptoms, how do I get better, that people are suffering. But with this, it's almost like we're celebrating the thrivers. So yeah, I could not tell that they ever had it.
And I bet some of those thrivers that met up, because a lot of them were high capacity, but I bet some of them still had symptoms.
They did. Yeah, they were in AP. Some of them said they were in APs.
But you couldn't tell, which is wild. I think that's why they call this an invisible illness.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, because it happened to me. I don't know if it happened to you guys. Like, a lot of people from the outside, even at my worst, like, they found it hard to believe that I was sick, because I looked fine.
Yeah.
Outside.
But the interesting thing is, when I was in Germany, I'd say almost, I don't know, I'd say like 25% of the people who I met up with, they were in flare-ups or in APs. But when I asked them, or when they brought it up, they were like laughing about it. So it wasn't even a negative thing. They were like, yeah, I'm in a flare-up right now. I'm in an AP. It's a juicy one. The brain fog's kicking in, but they're like laughing and stuff, right? So they're responding obviously really well to it, which is why they're making so much progress, responding well to symptoms.
Yeah, I was just curious to maybe go around and share what were some of the early mind shifts for you that like really started to spring you forward in your journey, and maybe those things that you brought with you on the way, like stuff that maybe was the foundation and then you carried with you.
One of the early mind shifts, I mean, this entire program is based on the mind-body thing, but I was still so focused on the body part and not too much the mind part. And I still, like, in the first few months, thought if I just worked on the body part, then I would still fully recover without having to deal with the mind stuff, right? But it actually really clicked with me one time when my parents were over, and Mom had an argument with Dad. And then right after she did that, she had to go to the bathroom and get a salon possum and put it on her shoulder. And she was like, yeah, my muscle pain like flared up, and I don't know, something like clicked in me at that moment of like, it's flaring up because she got mad. And the thing is, my mom saw zero correlation to it, but I did. I think that was like my first realization of, holy crap, like the mind actually can directly like determine if you get symptoms or not. And so that's when I really started to double down on the mind stuff, like really putting my mind in a healthy place. I don't like saying the word positive. I like saying the word healthy because it's more balanced. I feel like a healthy mind, consists of some construction that needs to be done, but also some positive as well. So really putting my mind in a really healthy place. But first I had to learn what healthy meant. And, the community really helped with that as well. A lot of people sharing their wins, kind of showing me the things that they were doing, allowed me to self-reflect and be like, oh, I might be not doing that in the healthiest way, because they just shared their win about how they changed something in which I already do wrong. So I should probably kind of tweak that a little bit. But yeah, for me, it was simple, Krista. It was really just understanding it was actually a mind-body thing, which I'm a little embarrassed to say it took me a little bit longer than usual to actually catch on because of that was the case. And the reason is because I got sick from a virus. You know what I mean? So you're going to tell me I have to work on my mind. I got sick because of a flu or whatever it is. Really hard to believe when it's triggered in that type of way. You know what I mean?
You almost have to experience it first to start believing it. That was kind of very similar to mine. It's when it clicked that this wasn't just a physical thing. Like, my thoughts had a lot to do with it, and my brain. Because for the longest time, like, I'm imagining my mitochondria just dying in my body, wilting away, disintegrating into my bloodstream. That's what I imagined. And it was terrifying. So I thought I was like this close away from my body just like stopping. My lungs would shut down, this and that. So every time I tried it in the past, and up to this massive mind shift, it was just completely bedridden, living with my grandparents, hospitalized for a couple months. And almost everything I tried, I'd feel worse after. So I started correlating sitting up out of bed or going to the washroom with like a crash or something bad happening. So when I met my doctor and he started explaining to me like, hey, yeah, you feel physical symptoms, but this is because your brain is sending your body the wrong signals. But you're not going to die, Miguel. So when they sat me up in a wheelchair, rolled me into his office, and then I didn't die, and like I didn't crash, and it actually started to make sense. That's when I realized, okay, so this is a mind-body illness. Because based on the amount of time I just sat up for, I should have been, my lungs should have been shut down at this point. The mitochondria should have gone bye-bye at that point, but it didn't. So he was right, and that's the first time I think a doctor or medical professional said what was going on, and it actually, what he said actually played out. So then it just, I put all my trust in him, and he started teaching me the principles. But it was realizing that it's not just a physical thing in my body. Yes, I feel the symptoms, I feel it in my body, but the problem is coming from my brain. So that's when I had that huge mind shift. And it was mostly up. Yeah, it was all upward trajectory from there. I was still flaring up like crazy in the wheelchair. My lungs were feeling heavy, but I didn't die, so it was good.
I'd say for me, it happened with one of the first activities I did, looking at mindset and thought processes. And it hit me like a ton of bricks that although a lot of the things that led me to CFS weren't my fault, like catching the virus or trauma or things that happened, like, not being in good positions when I was younger, it's my responsibility to be in recovery. That's probably the biggest mind shift I had, was that up until I came into recovery, I felt really helpless and out of control of a lot of things. And to a certain extent, I personalized things and it felt like everything was my fault. And in that assignment, I really realized that, wait a minute, I actually didn't cause some of the things I felt I did. There are things that I have done that I've kind of been in denial of, but regardless of all of that, I have a choice today, and I have a choice to be in recovery and a choice to do the things to keep me healthy. And that was probably the biggest mind shift I had, because I just felt I always felt under someone's thumb. And yeah, that really helped me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have to admit, it's the golden rule of recovery. How you respond to symptoms, because nobody ever told me that. No doctor, no psychiatrist, my family, my friends. And I just remember that slide the first week in the program. And he said, Miguel slide said, the golden rule of recovery is your response to symptoms, how well you respond to symptoms. And I had to be honest with myself, because I remember I was staring at that slide and I'm like, I'm responding horribly, like horribly. I didn't respond well to it. Like, I couldn't kid myself. Like, I wasn't responding well at all. Like, I had panic attacks every single day. I was trying to fix my symptoms. I was getting arguments with my husband. I was calling my family every second of the day, screaming, help, help, help. I was calling the emergency room every second I could get. Like, is that responding well? No. And I had to be honest with myself, and I had to give myself grace as well, because I was in such a state where I couldn't really respond well, but I was understanding that it needed work. And I just tried like 1% better. So like if I was in a panic attack, I didn't jump from my phone and dial 911, right? I sat with myself for just a couple minutes, and I'm like, I've been 20 times before. They keep saying nothing's wrong. I'm okay. And I'd go to like my husband and call him instead, or my family. But I didn't do that before, right? So even that, and then sometimes I wasn't successful. Sometimes I still had to do it, but it was that little chipping away. And that's where I started to get the wedge. And I started to feel the shift, because I didn't completely believe it, but I did know I wasn't responding well. So that's the first thing I tried to fix. I started chipping away at it, started seeing little windows of feeling a little bit better. And then it just started getting easier to respond well, because the symptoms started to come down a little bit. But yeah. And then it was a journey from there a little bit, right, with expanding activity and other things that I was going through. But it started with realizing that I was not responding well to symptoms.
That's a good one. That was me too. None of us were responding well to symptoms. And you don't even realize it. It's like you just get taken for a ride by your amygdala, straps you right into the roller coaster. You don't even know you're in a roller coaster, and it just goes. Mm-hmm. And you freaking out. I think that's a normal thing.
Awesome. That awareness, right? And like self-reflection is huge in this journey. Yeah. I've been really thinking about this one. I'm going to see, for me, like one of the cornerstones of it was that belief that it was the nervous system. And to kind of tie into what Junior was talking about, understanding that mind-body connection, because I was a physical therapist in the back. I was in my past, and it was like so emphasis on that physical symptoms. And to be honest, when I would hear content like this and I would hear people be talking about mind-body condition, I was like, what kind of woo-woo mind-body stuff are they talking about? Do you know I can't walk to the bathroom? Like, I'm stuck in a dark room. Like, I can't tolerate light, sound. Like, I'm in a state of overwhelm and shutdown, and you're going to tell me that it's a mind-body condition? Do you see this? This is physical, right? And that was like that understanding that these physical symptoms are real. And when we're talking about the mind-body, understanding that we're talking about the nervous system. And Junior actually really helped me with this, like understanding the brain as the mind, and then the nervous system out in our body, the peripheral nervous system being that body, and literally that mind-body connection. And that doesn't discount how very real physical symptoms are. And that was like something that was really tricky for me to understand, that component of it. I don't know why that was really like a roadblock for me. But once I started to believe that it was the nervous system, that was a huge step for me. And then getting it, that like, how was I going to interface then with my brain to interface with my mind and my body? And that was something that I learned in responding well, and understanding that my emotional responses and my thoughts were actually shaping my physical brain. And then that was going to really impact my physical symptoms. And I had to keep, like, I think I came to the first few calls like over and over, just being like, so wait a minute, guys, like, what are we doing? Okay, let me think about this. So it's my response is going to rewire my brain, and that's going to get my nervous system out of this state, and that's going to get rid of my very real physical symptoms. But I had like this kind of false dichotomy where I was like either or instead of and. Like, it is real, it is intense, it is debilitating, and we can recover because it is our nervous system. And at the end of the day, we are empowered to make those changes. It took a time. That took layers to get to, but that belief that was the nervous system, and the belief then that we can make change and we can recover, was huge for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff online about mind-body illness, and I had seen it before, and I was like, hell no, that is not what I have, because mine is very physical. But did you guys come across that prior to finding CFS Recovery?
Yeah.
Yeah, like how many times have you probably seen that pop up as an explanation for what you're dealing with, and then just write it off?
Yeah, man, because at some point it's insulting.
It is
You're not
insulting.
ready to, be receptive to that.
So people are probably insulted right now. Let's talk about it, because it's the first time they're hearing about it.
I mean, it's because it can almost be correlated to, oh, you're telling me I'm crazy, because you're telling me because I'm a crazy person in my head is the reason why I have these symptoms, right? But not so crazy when you kind of come to the realization of, okay, these things are interconnected. Like, the body can make the mind sick, but the mind can also play its part, in reverse as well. So I think we all had to go through that, to be completely honest, of like hearing that, getting offended, and then kind of coming around to it slowly, and then very slowly realizing that it works, and then saying, dang, it works. And then, just keep going little by little, and your ego dies and sheds a little bit. As you go on.
Yeah, because people hear mind-body illness, but you could replace mind with brain. And a brain is a very physical thing, but if people think about brain rewiring, to a lot of people it's just an abstract concept. How do you measure that? What do you even think about? Because there's a billion different thoughts. But when you realize there's actually different areas of your brain that you're trying to reactivate, for example, very basic science here, the reason we're getting so many symptoms and we're in this fight or flight anxious survival mode is because your amygdala, a part of your brain, your survival part, is completely lit up. It is hyperactive, while all the other areas of your brain they're being underactive, which is the logical centers, which is why when you're flaring up, I would think a mole on my arm is cancer, and that's certainly what's causing all my symptoms. So your brain can play tricks on you, but it is a brain body or mind body illness. But I definitely got offended when I saw that in the past, or anything about somatic symptoms, because it basically sounds like they're telling you it's all in your head, which now we know that's not too far from the truth. It is technically your brain is in your head, but there's some very physical things going on there that you have to rewire a lot of that stuff. But I got super offended for probably a couple of years. And it wasn't until I hit rock bottom that I'm like, I'll try anything. I never actually gave this a shot. So my doctor said, yeah, it's just your software. Basically, we need to update it. I'm like, well, that makes sense. I wish somebody told me that like 2 years prior versus just brain retraining. But how about you, Ariel?
Yeah, it was when I was 7 that I was told I had a somatoform condition. And obviously at that point in time in my age, I wasn't like, oh, that's not true. But as I got older, I remember being explained to by, I think, a neuropsych that, you have this mind-body disconnect. And I was so defensive. It made me feel so judged. And on top of that, going from that person to going to a doctor and saying, I think I have a somatic illness, and them looking at you and going, well, I can't help that, and then going to a psychologist and them going, well, I don't quite know how to help that either. You start to feel really helpless. And the idea of mind-body really made me feel out of control. And that really simple concept that like Junior said, yeah, your brain and your mind is in your head. So I guess it is in my head, and if my thoughts are in my brain and my brain's in my head, then, I have a mind-body disconnect. But it took me reaching a bottom with that, and reaching a bottom with wanting it to look a certain way and wanting recovery to seem a certain way. And I had this idea in my head that if I recover, I'm going to come out on top, and it's going to be this physical thing, and it's going to be like it never happened. It's going to be just like a bad dream. And that idea really kind of went against that for me. It was really hard for me to accept.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you guys how many times I went to the psychiatrist, and they put labels on me with, you have severe depression, you're in a psychotic state, you have severe anxiety. And every time they said that to me, I said, yeah, no, you know what? Yeah, I am, because I can't do anything. I'm anxious because I can't do anything. I can't get off the couch. Yes, I'm depressed because my whole life just stopped, right? So I was very defensive. I'm like, what do you expect? My life has come to this little box, right? So now looking back, it was kind of the other way around, right? I had a dysregulated nervous system, which of course was creating those symptoms. But at first, I want to add this too, because this might resonate with you guys. The psychiatrist told me I had resistant. I couldn't have any medication that would touch my depression. I was resistant to any medications. And that really, really scared me. But I really, really felt ostracized and just not heard, because they just kept saying, you're anxious and you're depressed. I'm like, I've been anxious my whole life, but it was a very, it was a norm. It was the norm for me, where it was a functional anxiety. I was an athlete. I performed. I was a gymnast. And, that's a very tough sport mentally. So, I could do the things, but I remember always being anxious. So I remember when the doctor said, and I had a separation anxiety when I was younger, some little signs there. And when they said, this is anxiety, I'm like, this is another level. I know what anxiety is, right? So I was just going in one ear and out the other. But just a lot of resistance to that, because I just felt like I wasn't being heard until I joined this program. No explanation. So.
Yeah. And even you mentioned yesterday that they even sat you down in a room with 11 doctors.
Yes, Miguel. Speaking of somatoform disorder, I don't know if you guys have heard my recovery little interview that's on the website, but when I went to the hospital for the 20th time, I was on my 11th streak of not sleeping, and I was hearing voices and really in that psychotic state. And they checked me into the hospital, and I actually had COVID. This was in the height of COVID, and they swabbed me, and they're like, you're not going anywhere, because I checked myself in to go get some help at the mental health facility, but I had to go through the 911, the ER. And they said, you actually have COVID. You can't go anywhere. We have to quarantine you. So I was quarantined in an emergency room for 2 weeks before they could switch me over. And they finally switched me over. I wasn't sleeping in the hospital, and I had COVID on top of CFS and everything. It was not fun. And then when I got into the facility, every morning, they had a team of doctors that would circle, and they were trying to get me on combination of some medications that would make a dent in this. I was in such a state that nothing was really getting to me. And we went into this conference room, and there was 11 doctors, psychiatrists, top psychiatrists, you guys. I live in Charleston, where there's MUSC, and these are top doctors here, and they were sitting around a table. They also had, it's a student medical university, so there were students with these top psychiatrists too. So it was so stressful. I felt like I was being interrogated, actually. And they said, we think this is a somatoform disorder. This is psychosomatic. We're trying to get you on some medications, but I'm going to pass you off to so-and-so. And they had like all these little different binders with specialists. Like, I'm going to go see a physical therapist, then I'm going to go see a psychiatrist, and I'm going to see a therapist. And there was like literally 8 different doctors. They were trying to set up appointments for me. And I remember my first thought was like, this is too much. Like, I don't even have energy. How am I going to put energy into all of these specialists and go to all these appointments when I can't even sleep? Like, I can't even walk right now. So it was scary, and it was very discouraging. And I left that facility with some medications that were helping me a little bit, but still no answer. What was on my records was somatoform disorder. That's about it. So they were looking at me like a case that they probably didn't really know what to do with me. So that just shows you guys the volume and the extent that I've gone through. And then this man right here is able to turn around in 4 months. So
Yeah. Then you found my YouTube video.
and I found your YouTube video, and it all changed.
There we go. The stars align.
Later to you guys. I know you know that, but it was a lot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Adrian, being vulnerable and sharing more of your story like that. That's very powerful. What a journey, though. Like, oh my gosh, the first time that it was suggested mind body or like anything psychosomatic, livid. Like, I was fuming because it was so, and it is so real, and it felt so like it didn't even touch the depths of what I was experiencing and going through. And I had my background. For those of you who may not know, I have a background. My education is in, my undergraduate degrees are in psychology and exercise and health science. I went on and got my master's in physical therapy, then my post-professional doctorate in physical therapy. I'd studied the body, and I was like, this is physical. I've got heart rate stuff going on. I've got blood pressure stuff going on. I've got lung stuff going on. My oxygen saturation's all over the place. Like, what do you guys mean? And I got that too, where people would say, well, we think this, is possibly related to feelings of depression or anxiety and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah. Like, there's anxiety. I've had anxiety. I went through this education route. Like, I know what anxiety is like when you're under pressure, you're performing. This is not that. Like, it just felt so invalidating. And I think sometimes the approach out there, it just, nobody's explaining. Nobody's connecting the dots the way that CFS Recovery does. And I think that's such a huge thing to know, again, for me, that these very real physical symptoms are connected to our brain, to our mind, and all that stuff. And to have that explained would have made such a difference. I don't know if that was something for you guys too, but it just was like, oh, here's this diagnosis, and kind of go. And even with having the diagnosis of ME, CFS, and long COVID and some of these other things, it was still like, here's some, we can try some of these medications. There's actually, maybe some evidence that some of these things are starting to help, but nothing really is there. And so it just felt like invalidating and like, good luck. And that was such a shift for me coming in this program and having everything explained why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, understanding that is the nervous system and that there is a way out. And it just shifted everything.
Can I ask you,
Yeah.
Krista? Thank you. I think trust is another big thing, because my trust was broken through the medical system and the doctors and the psychiatrists. And that trust, it wasn't just because they weren't finding an answer for me, but it was because they've never been in my shoes. And I couldn't, there was some block. Like, there was a block that was hard for me to believe what they were saying. And that goes a long way, right? So when I first had a call with Miguel, that was the first, I felt hope, but I think that hope came from trust, because I didn't completely believe, right? Because this nervous system thing was new to me. And I watched some of Miguel's videos, so I knew this was about rewiring the nervous system, but didn't really believe yet because I didn't see proof yet, right? I wasn't feeling good, but the trust and that feeling, I was like, I trust him because he is speaking my language. You can't make this up. Like, I have nobody, all these top doctors that I've seen, like nobody has said anything close to this. Like, this guy has actually been through it, and not only through it, doing the things. Like, he has got to get his life back. So I think that the trust was there too. And I had a lot of resentment because I just didn't have that trust.
Yeah. No, trust is definitely broken many times, or especially when, you get prescribed a medication you probably shouldn't have been prescribed. Then you have side effects. I mean, I was given hydrocortisone and all these other things. I can't even remember how many appointments I had with doctors, even just IV treatments. That was like over 100 over like a 2-year period. So it's crazy to think about. For me, that was 6 years ago. 6 years ago. For you guys, that was way more recent. For you, that was 2.5 years ago, right? Yeah. Krista, that was 2 years ago. We were just starting your initial 30-day plan. August. Yep, August 2022, and you were just walking 5 minutes outside. Now you're hiking a lot. Adriana, it was about just under 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ariella was just about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. And you guys are still trying to figure out what the heck's even going on and how you're going to get healthy again. And now you're here, which is wild. But
I love getting the ball rolling for like a thriver for the first time, talking to them.
Yeah.
Like seeing them make their first steps. Because I remember telling the doctors all the time, I'm not freaking out and anxious and like this way and that's not the thing that's causing my symptoms. I'm this way because my symptoms are here. I remember telling the doctors that as well. And then you come into a program like this and they'll tell us the same thing, right? I'm not freaking out or I'm not like this way normally, but I'm only like this way because I have symptoms. And then you got to really ask them, like, how were you before you got sick? And they would always come back and be like, I was normal. Like, my personality was fine. There's like one thing that was extreme about me, and that's when you come.
Just one thing, one small thing.
Place of like, this person just made progress. This person just got the ball rolling for the first time. So, and this dude believes in the mind-body thing so much. You know what he did? We came into the Airbnb yesterday. He comes in, no shirt. He goes, how are we going to challenge our nervous systems today? I had an idea. Let's watch a scary movie. I'm just like...
Yeah. I like to test it. I just want to make sure,
Yeah. I'll tell you right now, no, won't be no Conjuring movie on here tonight.
Oh.
No way.
The Ring.
No.
No.
Like, this is... Yeah, I always like testing the nervous system. Almost like to the extreme a little bit. You get some old personality Miguel coming back. But now I know how to pump the brakes, if things get too messy. But I'll push it really hard. In fact, I'll probably push harder than I used to, but then I'll pump the brakes. That's the difference. Before, it was just like a freight train. No brakes, no days off. Now, like, imagine what I do now without brakes. That was like old Miguel. It was crazy. But, yeah, my nervous system is definitely anti-fragile now. So far, from what I've seen. What are some exciting things you guys are up to in your lives now that you have this capacity to do things, maybe like physically and mentally? What is it like living life right now? It's a very broad question, but...
I'll start. It just feels totally different. I think living life today is, I just don't have to think about every single solitary thing that I do. I can just live. It's nice. I mean, first off, I'm working full time. That's wild. That's something that I haven't been able to just work and just do what's asked of me and go forward with that in that fashion in probably 10 years. And even then, it was always with restrictions. I always had to work for myself in a way where I could really manipulate and control things depending on my symptoms. And it feels so amazing to be able to just be present and do something I really, really enjoy. There's that. And then, during the day, if I'm feeling bored, I can just go for a walk. I can just go drive down to the park down the street and go for an hour hike and come home and maybe rest, maybe not. I can, if a friend stops by and brings a ton of, food, like pizza, and this happened last week. One of my friends come over with a ton of chocolates and pizza and stuff like that. And I was just able to totally indulge with her and then go right back to work. So it was really nice. It's nice to be able to be spontaneous and to be spontaneous in a way where I don't have to think, how is this going to affect me later? And that's most of what I have going on right now. Nothing huge, but I'm really enjoying being able to live and appreciate the normal things that I haven't had before.
It's like a new sense of freedom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Aria. Awesome. I just think everything's changed because if I think back, you know, when I met Miguel, how old was I? Like 31, I think. I don't even remember what was going on. Like, I was not ever living in the present moment, ever. Like, it's hard for me to even think of things that happened in my life before because I was always worried about the future. I was always 10 steps ahead, never really present and enjoying the journey and enjoying the moment. So that's completely changed. It's felt like time has slowed down. It's weird. Like, it's a very strange feeling. I was never grateful for anything. I didn't even really know what gratitude was. I was thankful for things in my life, but I think a lot of my intentions came from a selfish place before. So the gratitude has changed my life, and it's the gratitude for the small things, and that makes the time slow down and it makes you more present. So, which that ripples out into everything, right? Like my physical capacity and my mindset. So, you know, when I go on the run, I'm not thinking of what I'm going to make for dinner. Like I'm like, this is beautiful out here. Like my legs are working. Like this feels awesome. My heart is pumping for me. It's working for me. The sky is blue. Like I never said that in my life, right? So it's just rippled out into everything, and it's changed, and my whole perspective has changed. And another thing too, I never knew the power of my brain and of myself. And I think this has really helped my confidence as well. I wasn't confident with really life or with like the trust in my body, even being an athlete, right? You think I'd have a strong mind-body connection, but there was always this disconnect, and I felt like I was always on defense, like deflecting things in my life, and it was just the way it was, and that's how I got to live my life, because that so-and-so is living their life that way, or I was taught to live my life that way, and I was taught that this is how life is going to be, and I didn't think I had any control over that. So that has changed enormously, because now that I do have control, I can accomplish the things that I've always wanted to accomplish, and I have goals that I want to meet, things I never thought I would be capable of. So, yeah. I mean, that's just in a nutshell, you guys. But
Tears of gratitude.
That's it.
I like it.
Tears of gratitude.
Beautiful. Those tears of gratitude that was such a cool transition in recovery. That first time, like I really started to have those tears of gratitude. So thank you for sharing that, Adrienne. Man, so it's just, what do I want to say? I think one of the biggest shifts for me is that I have more freedom and I have more choice. I have choices that I just didn't have in my life because I was operating from that place of survival. So everything was to just survive. I wasn't thriving. And it's hard for me to try to think of how to really explain it, but I can look back. It's similar to what you shared, Adrienne. Like even when I, maybe externally it appeared like things were going well. I'd gotten my degrees. I was working full time in this great profession, but I was just always in a rush. I was just never present in the moment. I was always in this urgency, energy, and I just wasn't taking time to enjoy life. And, even just like reflecting on this trip and us all being here and thinking about what it took to get us all here, looking back on my life before, this would have been so overwhelming to me, even if I had managed to pull it off, to work like a full week and be present with all of my clients and do all that as a physical therapist, and then ended up being like a 9.5 hour road trip, and then come be present and hang out with people, and being present with people is like a huge shift for me too. And I look back at my life before, and this just wouldn't have been an option. It wouldn't have even been on the table. It would have just maxed me out. I would have barely made it through the work week, and the idea of packing and coordinating and what to wear, and like I would have like overanalyzed every little decision to the point of just analysis paralysis, to where it was easier to just stay and survive and just do what I had to do to get through the week, to get through the day, to get through the next thing. And that's been such a shift to have that freedom, that flexibility, that resiliency in my nervous system to do these things. Like that just wasn't there. And I'm going to try to explain this. I was sort of goal oriented in a way before my illness, but it was like all driven by externals and external validation. It was getting personal record on my spin class. It was getting the degree. It was getting the next degree. It was getting getting that other certificate. It was like all of this kind of stuff that was driving me. But I have a different way of setting goals and a different, how do I want to say it? Like, I'm more authentic and I'm more aligned with my authentic values. So when I'm setting these things to move towards, it's from a place of authenticity and like an internal sense of contentment versus like seeking this external that I think I'm moving towards. And I know that's like nuanced, but that's been a really big shift for me. And I think that's a big part of like shifting out of survival and into thrival is we are more in touch with our authentic self. We've had so much stripped away and you've spent so much time with yourself in some dark places and you come through this. And I don't know, that was a big change for me and part of this journey and being able to have these things on the horizon. And so doing some really cool backcountry backpacking trip. I never would have, I couldn't have done that. Like carrying a 45-pound pack, hiking up from sea level and then staying a couple nights in the like literal wilderness. I couldn't have done that before. And even this big hike that I did recently, like a few weekends ago, like 14.5 miles, the things that we learn in this program with our mindset and that connection, that mind-body connection, that like serves you for all of these other goals, whether they're cognitive, emotional, or physical goals. And I guess I just want to lastly kind of say it really is that ripple out effect and just being able to be present in the moment and present for the people around me. And that was so hard. I was always go. I didn't have time. I don't have time for this. I'm just going to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's been a big shift.
The cool thing I see with everybody in the programs, but also you guys, is how much can change in 1 year or 2 years. Like, it could be a completely different life, right? Because we see a lot of people that we work with who they're bedridden maybe when they start, and then 10 months later, 11 months later, they're going on vacation with their families and eating all the food they want to eat. And it's like a different person. And same thing with you guys. I remember every single one of you guys, our first conversation, like pretty clearly. So the fact that we're here sitting in person is wild. Like, I wouldn't have even kind of envisioned that. But I remember when you guys were sick, like you were on your couch, just barely holding it together. You're like, if I could just eat pizza, like, you think that's possible if I could eat pizza?
I don't even trust it. Like, the first 2 months of the program, because the program was so early, there was no social proof. I actually asked him if I can go on a payment plane because I didn't want to give him all my money. But, fast forward now, man, it's a real deal. I mean, that I'm living proof.
Yeah. You're on the couch. You could barely walk to your mailbox, but I remember you just like slouched on the couch. It was the same with you, Adrienne. You were just slouched on the couch.
And they say this is an invisible illness, right? But I remember this was not an invisible illness. I mean, my eyes were sunken in. I lost weight. I mean, I felt like half of my face was
like pale.
I was pale. I was probably going on, I don't know how many nights of not sleeping, but yeah, a lot has changed, Miguel. And I remember the first thing Miguel told me, he's like, what are your goals? Because that's a big thing. What are your goals? And I was like, I just want to go to the gym. I just want to go to run, please. It was all physical based, right? Didn't even think this was going to be some responding well to symptoms. Just give me a plan so I can walk and then I can run and I can go to the gym. And he was like, oh, we'll get you there in 6 months. And I was like, that's the first time anybody has said this to me. And I had a doctor say, I said the same thing to them. I was like a broken record. I just want to be able to work out again and run. And they'd say, well, this is going to be not a marathon. Or it's going to be a marathon. It's not going to be a sprint. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, give me a timeline. Like, I mean, like in code or something. And in riddles, like, this is going to be a marathon. It's not going to be a sprint. And I'm just like they're trying to like talk to me in like some form of analogy with my fitness or running. But I'm like, what does that mean? So he's the first one that said, it's going to be 6 months. And I just felt an immediate relief. And now looking back, that's the power of your brain, right? Because I felt that mental relief and I could feel it in my body in that moment.
I joined a cult. Like,
it has to. Krista, you didn't even, I think you look pretty lost. I'm like,
they received a credit card, or I was like, take it.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, well, Krista, you booked this call. I mean, you selected this time. You filled out the app. But you were just there like, I don't think you said much on that call, actually.
You guys, when I signed up for the program, I was just like so desperate, and I had so much brain fog. There might have been a little drool, Miguel. I was so
now to pull up the replay, instant replay.
Out of it, you guys. And I'm like, I was finally like, I've snapped. I've lost my mind. I have been through the ringer. Like, I've been to top people at like medical universities.
You went to long COVID clinics, right?
Yeah.
You were on 20 different medications.
Cedars-Sinai, UCLA, like top tier, like 50 plus specialists, multiple cardiologists, neurologists, hematologists, immunologists, rheumatologists, all the ologists, like on and on and on and on. And I'm like, this kid on YouTube, I'm going to give him some money. And this is good. What did I just sign up for? I'm like, oh, I was so patient. And he broke it all down. And when I got off the call, I had just like basically thrown my partner's credit card at him too. And I was like, shut the laptop. And I was like, I lost it. I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, I think I really just signed up for a cult or a scam or something. Like, this can't be real. How can none of these specialists, and me as like a doctor of physical therapy, none of us can figure it out, but this guy's got it figured out.
Yeah.
Like, that can't be real. Like, that's it.
Some kid on YouTube. So I tell people, it's like, okay, I'm not a doctor. I did not go to medical school, but look at the results we can help people get. What's more important? Is it that piece of paper, or do you want your life back, basically? So don't even look at me. Just look at the proof and then make a decision from there, you know?
One thing I noticed about these guys since we started this journey here to Arizona, because a lot of us live on the East Coast, this whole team responds well. You guys might not think nervous system work can actually like change your physical symptoms by just responding well, but it's only if you look at it from like an isolated like thing, right? If I respond well to this one thing, then it'll change my whole situation. It's responding well to all the little things that add up to a big difference. And that's what I've noticed about all these folks here. Like having to wake up at, 3, 4 in the morning, respond well. Adrienne missed her connecting flight, respond well. Turbulence in the air, respond well. Yeah, landing is rough. Coming back into Arizona, you got to respond well. Like, yeah, I mean, Miguel didn't eat breakfast when he flew in and he only took an espresso shot, had a headache. You got to respond well. Show up to the house, no food. Got to respond well, right? Because Miguel didn't order it. Like, we took walks this morning. Krista encountered a dead animal on the side of the road. Respond well. I saw a rattlesnake. Respond well. You know what I mean? So when you talk about it like that, it really puts it into perspective of, okay, responding well does make a huge difference if you keep doing it and paying attention to those little things that you feel like don't matter. It totally matters. It makes all the difference. So,
And then it becomes like a natural thing, right? You don't even really think about it. You're like, that's kind of the blueprint for life. It's responding well to things you can't control. Or what does that even mean, responding well? It's responding the best you can in that situation. Because freaking out, panicking isn't really going to do much. What are you going to do when there's turbulence in the sky? Like, grip your seat tighter? Is that going to make the wings stronger? Nah. You just got to respond well.
Well, respond well to symptoms and respond well to life. Yeah. That's like that next shift. That's the next level, right? Like, that took a while, and I was like, oh, this is it. Whether it's the broken windshield, the turbulence, the espresso shot, like whatever the curveball is, respond well. And that takes time and practice, but it's a huge shift.
Yeah. So as we wrap this little sit down, I guess, couch chat up, is there anything else you guys want to share with people? Because this battery is dying. But after this, we're going to go find an escape room. We're going to do that. We're going to eat some steaks. We're going to hang out in the backyard, just hang out, have some good chats. Ping pong. We're going to play some ping pong, billiards, pool, all of that stuff. So we're going to go enjoy, after all this hard work, and take you guys along for the ride. So Thanks for joining us.
Don't give up.
Always remember, just like these guys, you are just one mind shift away from living life with thriving health. We'll see you guys in the next clip. Actually, take you along with us.